The truth that academics fear confessing. For millennia, we have been sold a single story, period. No questions, no doubts. The Great Pyramid was built, stone by stone, block by block, an epic feat of ancient human ingenuity. That is a lie, or at least, it is only half the truth. And someone finally discovered it. Approximately 2 years ago, an email arrived in my inbox. At first glance, nothing special. No renowned institution, no impressive PhD, no credentials that would make someone pay attention. But there was a message that would change everything. We are asking the completely wrong question about the pyramids. My instinct was to ignore it, because the internet is full of discoverers claiming to have unveiled the mystery of the pyramids, crazy theories, unfounded speculation, pure fiction. But then I saw the attachment, and my skepticism crumbled. 10 years, an entire decade of obsessive research, three-dimensional models detailed to the nanometer, precise measurements, structural analyses that would make any modern engineer sweat. As I read, I began to see the cracks in the official narrative, because this theory does not try to explain how the pyramid was built. It exposes which system really created it. And the truth is terrifying. The Great Pyramid was never built. It was sculpted, the evidence that erased centuries of lies. To understand why this matters, observe a detail that no one has ever mentioned. When you build, you add material. When you sculpt, you remove. And removing creates marks, signs of work, evidence impossible to completely erase. Deep fissures, tool marks, obvious irregularities, scars that scream, "Work was done here." But in the Great Pyramid, these marks practically do not exist, or they were deliberately eliminated. And that changes everything. A state-of-the-art technology team sweeps the foundation with extremely precise three-dimensional scanning. What they discover violates everything we believed. They were not rough and irregular surfaces of blocks assembled by primitive human hands. They found polished surfaces, too smooth, too uniform, too perfect, as if modern industrial machines had worked on it. Machines that did not exist 4,500 years ago. The Egyptians used basalt and granite, stone against stone. Anyone knows that leaves marks, scratches, microscopic grooves. But the 2018 scanning found something completely different. Surfaces with variation of only 0.2 millimeters, less than a hair, distributed across meters and meters. Friction between stone and stone would never create this. Never. This is the detail that breaks the official narrative, the precision that defies all logic. 146 meters, more than 2 million blocks of rock, each weighing tons. The base is practically a perfect square, variation of only centimeters on a base of hundreds of meters. The alignment with true north? So precise that even modern GPS feels embarrassed. Deviation, 0.067 degrees. For comparison, medieval cathedrals, already with technology available in the Middle Ages, show much larger deviations. Let that sink in. We are seeing a structure more precise than buildings constructed 3,000 years later. Now comes the problem that no one can solve. If you build from bottom to top, any microscopic error in the base amplifies as it rises. Amplifies exponentially. 1 millimeter becomes centimeters. Centimeters become meters. An error of only 1 millimeter on a base of 230 meters would cause a variation of 30 centimeters at the top. But the pyramid has only 21 centimeters of variation total between its four sides. Doing this would be like hitting a target of 1 centimeter at 1 kilometer distance with your eyes closed. 2 million times in a row, without failing even once. The mathematical probabilities do not describe this as unlikely. They describe it as scientifically impossible. The official explanations that crumble. The Academy tried to explain this. with two ridiculous solutions. First, the impossible mega ramp. Workers pulled blocks up a giant ramp to the top. Simple, elegant, completely false. For ordinary humans to transport tons of stone, the incline would have to be too gentle. Result? A ramp with kilometers of length, a colossal structure used for decades. And what is the evidence of this megastructure? None. No foundation, no remains of an embankment, no marks in the soil. Disappeared without a trace. But here's what bothers. Archaeologists found real ramps from 3,500 years ago on much smaller projects of obelisk transport. And you know what? They still exist. Petrified wood, compacted foundations, stake markings, everything preserved. So the question that no one asks is, why did the pyramid's ramp, theoretically much larger, used for much longer, disappear completely? Not a stone, not a hole, not one mark. Either it never existed, or it was erased by technology we do not understand. Second, the secret interior ramp. There was another Academy proposal, a spiral ramp inside the pyramid. Elegant, sophisticated, intelligent. There was only one small and absolutely fatal problem. You lose clear vision of the extremities during construction. Without being able to see the edges while you work, you cannot maintain perfect geometry. It is mathematically impossible. Result? Both solutions are flawed, and the most irritating thing is that the Academy knows this. There are publications that admit these fatal problems, but there is an unspoken rule in professional archaeology. You may not know the answer, but never, never admit publicly that you do not know. So they choose the least bad explanation and close their eyes. The truth that they did not want you to know. Huni Choi did something radically different from traditional academia, ignored the already finished pyramid completely, and asked something radical that no one had the courage to do. Which system would create something like this? And everything changed. Before the pyramid existed, there was only rock, a natural limestone outcrop, raw, irregular, imperfect, and if they did not transport 2 million blocks to the site, and if they simply started with what was already there, and if the pyramid was revealed, not assembled, and if it had been sculpted from the mountain itself, a revolutionary sweep with LiDAR, technology that penetrates the earth and reveals structures hidden beneath the soil, is conducted at Giza. Result, geometric patterns, scars in the rocks, signs of large-scale extraction. 1,200,000 cubic meters of limestone were removed from the plateau. Let that sink in. Imagine an entire football field filled with rock up to 60 meters high. It would be only 1/4 of the volume removed. And now, here is the disturbing part. All that rocky material disappeared, with no waste deposit, with no piles of discarded stones. How do you remove 1,200,000 cubic meters of solid rock and completely erase the traces? Or it was reused intelligently, the brilliant system that solves everything. Huni Choi did something different from academia, ignored the finished pyramid, and asked something radical that no one had the courage to do. Which system would create something like this? And everything changed. Before the pyramid existed, there was only rock, a natural limestone outcrop, raw, irregular, imperfect, and if they did not transport 2 million blocks to the site, and if they simply started with what was already there, and if the pyramid was revealed, not assembled, and if it had been sculpted from the mountain itself, a revolutionary sweep with LiDAR, technology that penetrates the earth and reveals hidden structures, is conducted at Giza. Result? Geometric patterns, scars in the rocks, unmistakable signs of large-scale extraction. 1,200,000 cubic meters of limestone were removed from the plateau. Let that penetrate your brain. Imagine an entire football field filled with rock up to 60 meters high. It would be only 1/4 of the volume removed. Now conceive that all that matter was removed, processed, refined, and reused. And now, here is the extremely disturbing part. All that rocky material disappeared, without leaving a trace. No waste deposit, no piles of discarded stones, nothing. How do you remove 1,200,000 cubic meters of solid rock and completely erase the traces? Or it was reused, intelligently, systematically. They did not start with a pyramid, they started with a giant trapezoidal block, a shape with a wide base that gradually narrows, with a ramp integrated into the structure itself, not added externally, but a fundamental part of it. And here is the blinding brilliance. A pyramid gets more and more steep as it rises. You cannot walk on a ramp that becomes vertical at the top. But a trapezoid? A trapezoid allows constant incline from beginning to end. Safe, stable, usable, all the way to the final top. You build an absolutely flat working platform, horizontal, with total vision of the extremities, perfect control of the geometry at each step. And here is the data that no one can explain. The incline of the Great Pyramid is exactly 51.5 degrees. You know what is the ideal angle for an internal ramp with a safe incline of 7 to 10% for humans and beasts of burden? 51.5 degrees. Exactly the same. Do you believe that is coincidence? That builders who mastered geometry so profoundly, so impossibly, simply did not realize that this angle solved all the logistics? Or they knew exactly what they were doing, and they encoded the solution in the very geometry of the structure. Then, in the final phase, you sculpt, remove everything else, refine to perfection. And suddenly, you have a true pyramid, without ramps leaving traces, with perfect logistics, with zero absolute waste. Giza is a closed production system, total recycling, the deafening silence of the Egyptians. The Egyptians recorded everything: rituals, techniques, procedures, deep technical knowledge. There are entire manuals detailing how to build smaller temples. There are papyri explaining stone extraction techniques. There are inscriptions showing how to polish statues and create water channels. But when you look for a clear description of how the Great Pyramid was built, you find nothing. Deafening silence. Papyri mention food transported, names of supervisors, worker injuries, even personal anecdotes of builders. Absolutely everything. Except one thing: the technical method. It is as if someone had applied a surgical selective eraser across historical records, erased specifically how it was done, left everything else intact. The Egyptians, who compulsively recorded every detail, suddenly go mute, just when they should describe their greatest feat in history. Or the method did not fit the narrative they wanted to perpetuate. Or revealing the process would make it obvious and unavoidable that we were asking the completely wrong question. The silence that continues to this day. British archaeologists explore the pyramid's underground chamber with precision tools, document everything meticulously. Detailed measurements, precise drawings, photographs, descriptions of rooms and chambers. And now comes the very disturbing part. When you try to access those complete reports today, certain rooms described in 1881 simply do not exist anymore, or they were rediscovered as new voids. 120 years later, the records from 1881 disappeared. They did not deteriorate. They were not lost naturally. They disappeared. And that is not all. Some archaeologists from that era who published inconvenient discoveries, they died weeks later. There is no conspiracy theory here. There are facts of public archive that indicate there has always been systematic interest in keeping certain knowledge contained. The final question: if they managed to hide the construction method, if they managed to erase historical records from the 19th century, if they managed to eliminate all physical evidence of external ramps, If they managed to make 1,200,000 cubic meters of solid rock disappear, if they managed to maintain absolute silence in Egyptian papyri, if they managed to make it all disappear without leaving a trace, then the question you absolutely should ask is, what else did they hide? What continues right before our eyes, but that we still cannot see? What ancestral knowledge was lost? What technology was forgotten and buried? What fundamental truth was suppressed? The answer is encoded in stone, a message left 4,500 years ago, waiting patiently for readers capable of understanding. For millennia, we have been taught to ask the wrong question. Not, how was it built? But, what was removed so that it could appear? Which system would create something like this? Why would someone have obsessive interest in hiding this? Now it is time to ask the right questions, and when we do, everything we believed about history, civilization, and human capability changes fundamentally. The Great Pyramid remains, waiting, shouting its truth through the centuries. And we, finally, are beginning to hear. What you should do now. The choice is yours. You can follow the comfortable narrative, the story you were taught in school, the easy explanation that questions nothing, or you can ask the uncomfortable questions. You can look at the impossible precision and ask, how? You can observe the absence of evidence and question, why? You can notice the silence of the records and inquire, who hid this? The truth is in front of you, encoded in stone, waiting 4,500 years, shouting in every polished surface, in every impossible angle, in every erased record. All you need to do is be willing to listen.